Welcome back to the Digital Transformation Podcast. I'm Kevin Craine. I am so pleased to welcome Jason Cassidy to the program. Jason is the CEO of Shinydocs and an expert in digital transformation. Shinydocs develops enterprise-class information management business solutions, and Jason and his folks at Shinydocs have been working with some of the world's largest organizations on innovative ways to more optimally manage data and drive digital transformation. Jason, welcome to the show. Now, it's no secret that our business environment today, as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, is under a great deal of disruption. Organizations are now compelled to develop new ways of working, and that means more and more digital transformation initiatives. From your point of view, how has the need for digital transformation evolved over the last year?
It's been fantastic in the sense that sometimes the greatest challenges bring out the best in us and force us to go in a direction that we know we needed to go in the first place. With respect to things like work at home, we'd always dabbled in the idea of, can people be productive at home and will they still be motivated? And it's been thrust upon us now, and we have to just accept it and adopt that mentality. And it turns out that we can make it work, and it has changed the way that have thought about information. We can't just assume that we're going to have people go and find the information that they need on their own. We need better ways of making it well understood, making it actionable, and making it available to the people who need it and bringing it to them, rather than having this place where they need to go or multiple places. So I really like that it's been thrust upon us, and it's been thrust upon us in a way that we had no choice in. It's not like people did it to people. It was just this virus that we all fight. And I'm excited about the opportunity because it just means that we have to change, and it's inarguable. Like, I mean, regardless of the political affiliation that you have, people are working from home, and we have to adopt that. So that's why I'm very excited about it.
Well, indeed, it took a pandemic to compel us to move forward in ways that we knew were possible and knew would be good for us, but maybe we hadn't got around to it yet, or it seemed it seemed something we would do down the road. But now it's my view that organizations that are good at adopting change or dealing with change and adopting these technologies will indeed not only survive, but have a competitive advantage moving forward. But for some organizations and many business leaders today, I fear that the whole concept of digital transformation may still be a bit conceptual, or if it sounds achievable, it definitely sounds complex and expensive. What can be done today that is affordable and doable and of immediate value?
And I like this. This question to me invokes the agile methodology and the idea that what we need to do is not just continuously coming up with good ideas, but continuously delivering good outcomes. And that approach should be favored by organizations as they take on the challenge of digitization. We have a environment right now when we think of the most uh, the biggest, heaviest industries that we all rely on, like oil and gas, for example. It's whatever we think about whether or not we should have electric cars, let's set that aside. And most of us heat our homes with natural gas. So these are types of things that are going to be around for a little while until competing technologies figures them out. And those industries, which are pervasive, every town has retailers for these energies. Every town has uh, uh, transmission of this content and that type of thing. So it's everywhere, but it might go away. And how do they remain competitive? So it's incumbent upon utilities and oil and gas companies and food suppliers and these types of things. They're worried that somehow Google or Amazon or Apple is going to eat their lunch and
Mhm.
destroy the 100-year-old infrastructure that they put in place, and all of the investment that they put in will be destroyed by some innovation by some company that is just known for innovation. And I think it's a legitimate fear. And what they need to do is start thinking about, well, what are these innovative companies doing differently than what we've been doing. Because traditionally, these big companies, and these are our customers that we're dealing with, you'd go to a bond and then you'd build a big infrastructure based upon combinations of private investment and government grants. That doesn't sound very agile to me. What you need to do is start thinking about, what can I do today to make the improvement? So the way that we suggest to people is, most organizations come with a bit of abject ignorance when it comes to their information that they have. Where is my data? Well, I know I got lots in email inboxes and outboxes. I know I got lots in file shares, and we got some in SharePoint and OpenText and other systems. But if you ask them what it is and where it is, they truly don't know. So rather than saying, well, let's make a change to our infrastructure, let's bring in a new system or move stuff to the cloud or whatever, just ask the question, what can I do today to understand my data? And that's the approach that we take, is that we layer on the value using it. Of course, we have software that does the work because it's too big for humans. An average organization that we come into will have somewhere between 5 terabytes, which might be 5 or 10 million documents, up to a petabyte or 10 petabytes, which is billions of documents. And the problem is of the same magnitude for each of these customers. It's too big to just say, I'm going to drag and drop it into OneDrive or something like that. And that doesn't solve the problem anyway. So we say, wherever it is, we're going to show you what it is. Right from the metadata perspective, where are your duplications? Very simple questions. We do that very quickly. In the first couple of days of the implementation, you get that level of information. That always goes straight up to a CEO of a company. They look at that and go, wow, that's cool. We did that in less than a month, even though it was only 2 or 3 days. But from as far as they're concerned, it was less than a month because there was implementation time and others. But immediately they get this value of, now I see where my data is. And then we start layering on, okay, what can you do with the duplications? Let's start layering on technologies like clustering to show which documents all kind of seem the same in which areas of the business. Did you know that this thing that seems to be a contract is also in Kevin Crane's outbox in the email? Would you like to clean that up? So we show what the magnitude of the problem is, and we also have tools that allow you to make good decisions about actioning that content. And historically, in the contrast has always been for the incumbent players who, like Microsoft, the world leader in collaboration, undisputed in that, but they still say that you have to, before you get the collaboration, before you get our value, they say you got to put it in our bucket so that we can rent the data back to you. And then you can get all the value of understanding and that type of thing. And that's not next day understanding. That's not the way, the reason that Amazon is so powerful is because you want it now, it shows up that day or the next day. And if you say, well, we're going to understand our data, but first we have this monumental task of getting a petabyte of information up into some other system, the hurdle has proven to be too big. And so for anybody that I say that if you're taking that on, that is not an agile approach. That's a monolithic approach. And you better treat it just like you treat building a new power plant or building a new thing. You better go get a ton of money in infrastructure and investment to make that successful, because there's very few examples of people who have done full understanding across their data by moving it someplace else. So that's my really long way of saying, take a quick view of your data, use tools to understand it wherever it is. Don't even think about moving it yet. Then layer on further understanding, and we can get into talking about AI and other things. I don't want to sell you AI. I want to sell you an outcome of, what your data is and what needs to happen to it.
So what I hear you saying is it all starts with what you don't know. You don't know what you don't know. So if you don't know what information you have, what value it might represent, or what risk it might represent, where it is, who's using it, where, why, then it's impossible to really come up with any kind of meaningful information management strategy, it seems to me. Now, I speak with a lot of professionals in the information management industry, pundits in enterprise content management, and one recommendation that I hear consistently, one trend, is the idea of moving away from file shares. But I worry that especially now in this era of remote work, elimination of file shares seems to be a priority for some companies, but is that misguided?
It is misguided without first having the understanding of the information that is there in the ecosystem associated with that file share. You can absolutely move the ones and zeros from that file share up to a cloud system, to Microsoft 365, to an open text system, and get tremendous value from that. That's for sure. There's unquestionably. But let's go back and look at the file system itself. What is that ecosystem? How are people using it? We have customers that have 10,000 macros that have been built over the last 30 years in Excel and in their CAD systems and that. And they ask us, can your AI fix all those macros when I break them by putting them up in the cloud? And I'm like, wouldn't that be neat if we could, but it can't. And nobody else's can at this point. And then so we asked the customer, well, tell me about who still needs those macros. And they're like, we can't do our business without, we would have to retrain everybody and they'd have to recreate so much information. We'd be doing this forever. But unfortunately, the companies who buy, I'm going to buy some cloud storage, or I'm going to do this type of thing, and then they say, let's move all our stuff in there. Please drag and drop it right now. It is completely just destroying that other ecosystem. And kind of I was talking today to like a federal government like contractor or agent that we have, and they work with fisheries. And I was suggesting to them, when if you told your fisheries customer that in order for us to manage the fishery, I need you to take all the fish wherever they are in the United States or North America and put them into this one lake so that we can study them and understand them and make sure that they're healthy and vibrant. You would say that's insane, because there's no guarantee that they would survive. How do you even get them from A to B? Like, there's a billion reasons why that might be an obvious, bombastic, silly idea. But we do that with our file shares. We say, hey, let's just move it all up there. And then you find out, hey, that Internet of Things thing that I just bought that's constantly writing its logs every day to the file share, now I got to figure out how to make it write to something else. Those Excel macros, the linked spreadsheets, the CAD drawings that have XREFs, all of those are broken now. Man, I wish we would have thought of that. And that's why I say the file share moving someplace else can have extraordinary value, better security, and all sorts of stuff like that. But it only works if you understand that it is an ecosystem that you must move the ecosystem to, not just the data. And unless you understand what that ecosystem is and make a calculated proposal as to how to move the ecosystem, you're going to destroy the ecosystem and the people who rely on it.
Our guest today is Jason Cassidy, CEO of Shinydocs. Shinydocs develops enterprise class business information management and business solutions, and they have been working with some of the world's largest organizations, working to optimize data and drive digital transformation. You can find out more and find Jason at shinydocs.com. Now, Jason, how does Shinydocs help with all of this? Why Shinydocs? What is unique?
The approach that we've taken is born out of a simple question. Why doesn't all the information that is important to organizations have management? All of it. Anything that's important to your business should be managed. And what I mean by that is when it's subpoenaed for as part of a litigation, it should be relatively easy to find. If something should be disposed because I'm no longer an employee somewhere, and after 7 years after my employment, it should be disposed, it should be disposed. Like, there's all these legal citations and internal policies that are there for good reasons. And we would assume that we should have that for all the data. Yet, most organizations don't do it at all. Some organizations do it for their most important documents because that's all they could do. Shinydocs' approach is saying, let's just step back and say, what is it that we're truly trying to achieve? And why hasn't the industry achieved this yet? The incumbent players, when I talk about that, the people who built the monolithic architecture databases, I don't believe that they realized the runaway, unbelievable pervasiveness of the ability to create new content that Kevin and Jason and every other staff out there now as a knowledge worker Just right now, we're creating a few gigabytes of video and audio data with lots of value in it. And the amount of information is just way bigger than any of the monolithic management systems ever thought that there would be. So we've outrun the ability to just say we're going to put in one new system and do that. So the Shinydocs approach is to say, well, let's just take it from the value back. Well, I need to be able to find things. Okay, Google and others have set the standard for what it means to be good search. It means that you have massive enriched metadata on the back end so that you have some understanding and semantic meaning of the data. So we have tools for layering on the massive enrichment and semantic meaning across data. I'm not saying that we're moving it anyway. We just know where it is and what it is and how it relates to what people are looking for. And then people want a content lifecycle associated with the data. So what's the rule? You'll have a law and you'll have a policy that says everything that's this type of engineering drawing, if it supports the asset, it has to support the asset for the lifetime of the asset plus 25 years. So that's fine. You set the lifetime and you set the disposal policy, and you have the ability to demonstrate, yes, we are managing this in accordance with the policy. That doesn't imply that I got to put it anywhere else. So we can store that information. Things like content security. The only reason why shared drives are insecure is because it's a real hassle for IT people to make sure that the security, whenever Kevin wants to edit a document, man, I got to go and I got to unlock that document. We've solved that problem too, using elegant ways of doing that work. And so we keep looking at the problem, not from the perspective of what's been done, but what can be done without having to jump over that massive barrier of putting it somewhere else. And it allowed us, from a uniqueness point of view, to look at, well, why is that massive barrier there? Like I already suggested, that the cloud providers, their business model is not to manage your data. Their business model is to have your data and secure it and rent it back to you every time you need it. And the whole time it's there, you are renting your own data from them. It's a neat model, but it's not based upon the outcome of you having great management and that type of thing. It's based upon just a consumption of the content. You look at other systems, monolithic engines that are doing management, they want to lock you in. So they tie up your data into these proprietary formats that require you to have special viewers and these types of things. They kind of broke your legs to sell you a crutch. And now you're beholden to paying maintenance over and over again because you're kind of locked into the system. And that's why Shinydocs looked at this and went, okay, those things may produce an outcome that's fantastic, but there is some huge hurdles to get over to ensure that outcome. We're going to take it from a services point of view, not from we're going to write custom code for people, but from a services point of view that's saying whatever your content is, we're going to layer software on top of it that does this work without having to move it anywhere. So what we're selling is outcomes. We're selling, you don't win. You don't get a check mark for Shinydocs unless you've actually deleted the content that you wanted to delete. You don't get the check mark from us unless you've migrated to where you want to go with good understanding of the content. Or if you've managed it in place and make it searchable with an enterprise search, and now people understand what it is and can access it in a way that's ergonomic and easy, then you win with Shinydocs. And what's cool is Gartner just came out with a report a few days ago talking about a new metaphor for microservices architecture for content. And we looked at that and went, yeah, that's us. That's an easy one. We're not sure that we want to adopt the name microservices and that type of thing because it comes with some performance baggage and others. But the concept that they were selling is the idea that we're creating way too much data for you to put in a monolithic system and expect everybody to put all those fish into the same lake just so that we can manage one ecosystem. That's too much. You got to put services wherever the content is, and then you can achieve the outcomes because there's just too much data for you to try to do it all in one shot with one big system.
I'm speaking with Jason Cassidy from Shinydocs. We're talking about digital transformation and more optimally managing data to drive digital transformation. And Jason, when we started the interview today, we started by talking about how disruption and change are driving organizations to find new ways of working and adopt more and more digital transformation initiatives. it occurs to me that there is a great deal of change falling on the shoulders of folks that are doing the work every day. And whatever technology approach or strategy you choose, even the best strategies will be of little value if folks don't adopt the changes in process, don't embrace the new technologies and new ways of working. And what is one recommendation that you have for business leaders, team leaders, change agents, struggling to manage this human aspect of change?
Yeah, we are people who need things to be familiar in order to do our work. If we have to think, if we have to think and do something extra, there will be a resistance to it. And if people can find an alternative, then they will. And what I mean by that is going back to that way that we do business with a macro and a linked Excel spreadsheet. Imagine that I'm an auditor for some organizations and I have my whole toolkit, and I go in and I do my audit, and I get the information, and then my whole toolkit spits back some information. And an IT person comes along and says, I'm going to change everything away about that, and then we're going to put it someplace else. I need you to go change the macros and change the links in there so that you can continue to do your work. The reality is, the person who made the macro was probably a co-op student that was there 15 years ago. The people who are using it don't really know how to do it, and you got 10,000 of them. So what we're suggesting is, unless you come to where the end user is, unless you give them a tool that is ergonomic and familiar and easy across all of their what I've been calling ecosystem, you have put a barrier in place. And if you put too many of those barriers in place, you are not going to succeed in whatever you are attempting to do, whether it be a migration, whether it be digital transformation. Too many barriers will ultimately either end up with you having a lot of the old and a bit of the new, or a abject failure of we're stuck with all of the old and nobody's using the new, but we got a sunk cost fallacy, or it's like, well, we still got to keep working on this because I guess we didn't invest in it enough, when really you're maybe thinking about it incorrectly. Don't throw good money after bad. Go back to the drawing board and say, why did this fail? And what are our alternatives to the failure? It may be that you chose the right technology, but you didn't choose the right level of understanding and the path to get to that technology. So that's why I say, take it back to that. Go to where your users are, give them something that's familiar, or keep them exactly the same. And in my opinion, that's the only way to have a smooth and effortless transition in digital transformation.
Jason, it's been great speaking with you today. We're almost out of time, but before I let you go, one last question. What should CIOs and executives and business owners be thinking about today and strategizing for in order to be prepared for the world in 5 years' time?
Yeah, being a CEO myself and understanding and seeing a lot of CIOs that we work with at organizations, if you would ask for one thing that maybe not on your roadmap right now, I would suggest saying, I want a near real-time dashboard that shows me where all of my data is, including all of my content and what it is. So I would like to know how many concluded contracts are in people's email outboxes. I would like to know where all of our contracts are. I would like to know where all the asset information is. When I would like to be able to say, when our chief legal counsel comes to us and says, I need you to put all this stuff on legal hold, I didn't just do it in my content management system, but by virtue of the fact where I know all this content is, I've done it also on my file share and in the email. And I did it because I knew where the stuff was in near real time at all times. There's tools out there. Shinydocs does some of those tools in combination with other services that are out there. And that's the beauty of the service architecture that we're talking about, is that you don't get locked into one vendor. If Shinydocs doesn't do it all, then we can't do it. It is take the best of what we do and apply it with the best of what other vendors do and the best of what the legacy vendors do, and you will have a great solution. So start with that dashboard, start with understanding where the data is, and you will make better informed decisions, and you will bring in the solutions to the specific problems that you have, rather than just moving your content from the basement to the attic and discovering that you still have the same problems.
That is Jason Cassidy, CEO of Shinydocs. Find him at shinydocs.com. Jason, thank you so much for being our guest today on the Digital Transformation Podcast.
Thanks a lot, Kevin. That was a lot of fun.